Today we're talking with Nancy Slotnick, candidate for the 10th Congressional District. Welcome to the program, Nancy.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for doing this. During this COVID crisis, it's really hard to get out and see people and really get your message out. So things that you're putting together like this are a huge help in making that happen. So I really appreciate your efforts to do this.
Thank you. I want to start with helping people learn a little bit about you. So I'm going to start with this very obvious question that running for office is not easy. So what's motivating you to run?
If you had told me 10 years ago that I was going to run for office, I probably would have told you you were crazy. But a few years ago, I really became frustrated with the void. It felt like we had gotten fatalistic about this seat and that we were no longer actively recruiting or effectively recruiting viable candidates to run for this seat. And one day I had really a moment where I was reading the News Tribune's endorsements, and I said, we have got to find better candidates. Who can we get to run? And I thought through all the elected officials that I would love to see run for this seat and quickly explained away why they weren't. And I said, who can we get to run? And then it was like this verse from Isaiah that popped into my head, and where God says, who can I send and who will go for us? And the reply was, here am I, send me. And I paused for a minute, and then I said, I think I have to do this. So really has been kind of a calling since then, that I believe that I'm put on this path for a reason to flip this seat and give us better representation in the 10th district.
Well, that leads me into another big question. Working in Congress has always been a big job, but in the aftermath of the coronavirus restrictions and the impact on our society and our economy, it's an even bigger job. What qualifies you for the position?
Well, I think a lot of it is that I have been just dedicated to a lifetime of service. At the age of 18, I made the decision during my senior year of high school that instead of going on to a four-year college, I wanted to do something to give back. And in the February of my senior year, I joined the Army. And I thought I'd spend a few years and then maybe go do something else. I ended up making that a 25-year career. During that time, I got my associates and my bachelor's and my MBA, all while I was still serving on active duty and raising children. And then I got out and became a small business owner right here in the 10th Congressional District. And so I've had a lot of experience both owning a business in private sector and the public sector, and that 25 years of service. And I think that veterans bring a unique perspective to Congress, because in the Army or any of the services, no one cares what your background is. It's all about accomplishing the mission. And we learn to put our differences aside and listen to all the different voices so that we come up with better decisions and achieve the mission.
Me into another important question. As a small business owner, I imagine that you have quite an opinion about what's been happening here in Washington State. And one of the most controversial things that's been happening is that business owners are being fined who didn't adhere to the conditions and guidelines outlined by the governor with his stay home, stay healthy order. Can you share some thoughts about that?
Well, I've been very fortunate. Our small business is primarily from home. We're risk consultants, and so we are still able to go and do our risk and vulnerability assessments of critical infrastructure, but and then we come back to our office and write our reports. So we've still been able to function, but I look around in my community and throughout the district, and I see small business owners that are struggling. Most businesses operate on such thin margins. Restaurants are being hit horribly. They usually don't have more than a few weeks advance because of what their margins are. And so to penalize small business owners who are worried about whether or not they're going to survive this crisis and whether or not their dreams of 20 or 30 years of what they've built are going to survive the other side, and they've invested their life savings, to penalize them with fines for reopening is like rubbing salt in the wounds. And it seems just completely tone deaf to the needs of our economy and our small businesses, and even some of our larger businesses.
The cost of COVID-19 relief is huge, and me and several other members of our region are wondering the very same question, and that is, where is all this money coming from, and how are we ever going to pay for this and recover from the coronavirus restrictions?
Well, it's true. The cost of this is incredibly high. That CARES Act, which was the third iteration of relief for this crisis, was a $2.2 trillion bill. That was an immediate addition of 8% to our cumulative national debt. That will take us several years to pay back, no matter how much we put into it. So I think that there's really, we're going to have to really evaluate federal agencies and federal spending programs and decide where we can cut back, where we can tighten the belt a little bit, where there is excess money being spent that we could save, and just try to streamline things and be more efficient going forward.
That leads me into a completely different topic that's also a big concern here in our region. As a potential national leader, what would be your perspective on decreasing the number of homeless in our region and communities?
Well, homelessness is an issue that I have been very passionate about for several years. I think that there are a lot of things we can do, but a lot of those things are things that are incumbent on our local and state governments. Improving the permitting process, that's a county level decision. The Growth Management Act is also a state level decision. And we also need to be aggressively enforcing our laws. We don't want to criminalize poverty, but people who are engaged in criminal activity and drug activity, we need to be aggressively enforcing those things. So, but all of those things are things that need to happen here locally and at the state and local level. But there are things the federal government can do to support that. One of them is to evaluate where the federal money is going to support homelessness programs. One of the things I became aware of several months ago, because there's a homeless village in Olympia that I am very interested in and have been paying attention to, is that when we have clean and sober facilities for the homeless, that they actually get less federal money than the facilities that are supporting drug addicts. And so some of those things to balance and bring those things into perspective so that we're leveling the playing field and helping prevent people falling to the absolute bottom. We can stop people from getting all the way to the bottom before we reach a hand up. So I'd like to see us give a hand up instead of a handout more.
Final question, can you share why people should vote for you and perhaps how they could get in contact with you or volunteer or contribute to your campaign?
Well, I think that one of the reasons why I'm the best person to represent this district is because I represent such a broad base of the people who live in this district. We have the 11th highest number of veterans of any congressional district in the country, and I'm a veteran. JBLM is the largest employer in this district and one of the largest economic engines in this district. And I spent quite a few years of my military career right there on JBLM. I'm also a small business owner, So I understand what it is to start from scratch and build a business up with your own hard work and with your own money, and to risk everything to build something that you believe in. And so I would be a good support for small business owners. I'm also the parent of a disabled son, so I understand what it is to be a caregiver and to deal with all the government agencies involved in that aspect. And I'm also the parent of 2 veterans. And so I know what it is to send and not only to go to war myself, but to send your kids off to war. And so I think that all of those things together are things that make me very representative of a lot of the residents of this district. As for how to contact me or volunteer or donate, my website is nancyforus.org. And I will make the shameless plug that during COVID-19, it is a very difficult time to fundraise. I am the leading Republican fundraiser so far, but as of the end of last quarter, but the Democrats have outraised me 10-1. And if we're going to flip this district, we need money to do that and to get our message out. And I believe this district is a flippable district. A lot of people are fatalistic about it. They say, oh, that's a really hard district. It's very blue. It's actually, if you look at the analysts, it is the closest to even in the state other than the 8th, which flipped Democrat 2 years ago. The 7th district, where Pramila Jayapal is in Congress, that district is what they call a D+33, 33% likely, more likely for the point spread to be 33 points in favor of the Democrat. The 10th is a D+5. 5 is attainable. We can do this. I believe it's a purple district. It's a very moderate district, and I believe it's time for it to be represented by a Republican in Congress.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Nancy, and I wish you all the luck on your campaign. We'll be talking to you again soon.
Thank you, Kelly.